Hello and welcome to The Enthusiasm Project. Why did I accidentally hit the sound of applause? We were off to a great start. My name is Tom, and this is the show where I have no idea what I'm doing, but because it's a podcast, it sounds like I know what I'm doing. And today we are just going to keep going straight into Season 2. If you didn't listen to the first episode of Season 2 last week, I highly recommend you go back and check that out. Today, it's just me here, but last week, Heather joined me, and we kind of caught up not only what's been going on with us, but also the whole kind of thesis behind where I want to take, quote-unquote, Season 2 of this podcast. And we talked about documenting my entrepreneurial journey, which, relates to my goal that I set at the beginning of this year of starting a business. But if you listen to that, it probably sounded like I had no idea what I was talking about. And the reason for that is because I had no idea what I was talking about. And I still don't. But that's the whole point of documenting the thing is I don't know anything about this. It's just something I want to do. It's something I want to explore. It's something that I've always thought of as being like for other people and not something necessarily that I could do myself. And so the idea of jumping in and giving it a shot myself is really appealing. And I think that sharing that journey, documenting it for my own sake, but also sharing it for anyone who might be feeling the same way is really important. And I think will be really valuable. So I sort of wanted to go into more of the nuts and bolts of at least where I'm at with that. And, if you have any experience or thoughts or insight, and you can just tell me how stupid I am or wrong I am or, incredibly brilliant I am, feel free to send those comments my way as well. So what I meant by starting a business, typically, I think the most stereotypical way of starting a business is you create, like a business plan and you have an idea, a product, a service, whatever, that's going to generate revenue, right? Like that's the whole point. You provide something and people pay you for it and then you get that money. I'm sort of doing it backwards, which is I started my YouTube channel a couple years ago, and the goal was never to make money with it or to monetize it in any way. And still to this day and going forward, I've never made a video that was to make money. Even, I think it was last week, I had a video come out that was holiday gifts under $50 for, filmmakers or whatever. And there's affiliate links. But that was a video I just wanted to talk about affordable stuff that I think is really cool. It wasn't just a video to like make money or send people to affiliate links. But of course, over the past 2 years, I've learned if I'm sending people to these places, to these stores, because they want to buy stuff that I recommended, then yeah, sure. If there's an opportunity to get a commission off that, why not? But that's not the driving force behind it. And I currently don't have ads on the channel, but there's this revenue stream from different things. I'll just be super open and candid about it. There are Amazon affiliate links. There are affiliate links. I guess it's mostly affiliate. There's affiliate links from Artlist, which is a royalty-free music website, and affiliates from Epidemic Sound, which is another royalty-free site. Those are my three main sources right now. I'm coming up on 1 million views on my channel. At that point, I'm going to start playing around with ads, but I don't ever want ads to be a nuisance or annoying, and they kind of always are. But I at least want to start with like playing around with them maybe at the end of the videos where they're way less obtrusive and just sort of see basically what I had said in the past was I didn't want to do ads on my channel unless they represented what I called a life-changing amount of money. Meaning, I don't want to work really hard on a video that I care about and then let some company advertise on it so that I can earn an extra $18 a month. Like that's just absolutely not worth it. But if I can click a button that plays an ad and I earn an extra $10,000 a month, that's obviously worth it. So kind of going back and forth. If it's an extra 100, is it worth it? Probably not. If it's an extra 1,000, is it worth it? Maybe. Like you're kind of getting into that. Like for me, it's such a passion thing, and it's something I enjoy so much that I don't feel like I'm owed money for doing it. So if what we're talking about in terms of AdSense is a couple $100 even, it'd be nice, but it's not necessarily life-changing. But getting close to, hundreds of dollars or even close to 1,000 or beyond, that would be a life-changing amount of money. And I don't think that my channel is there yet, but it could be in the future. And so I'm just kind of playing around with that. basically anticipating another revenue stream in the future. The problem with all of these is that they are wildly unpredictable. So it can be an amazing month where in October, I think they amounted to $2,000, which was like, that's a huge chunk of money. Like that's, monthly income in some cases for some people for their like job. But, the month before that, it was $56. So it's like, it's hugely volatile, and it can be something huge, something small, whatever. I just want to have a way to manage it more effectively, which really stemmed from what I talked about last week, where I did my first officially sponsored video ever, and it was through Epidemic Sound, and they were so kind and gracious with my ignorance and held my hand through the whole process. And that was where the person I was working with most closely on the process, when they were trying to like literally put together my payment info so that they could pay me for the video, she was like, if you ever thought of, starting a company or incorporating, this might be a good time to do that, so that way you can do more of these things more easily in the future. And that's what really kind of was the light bulb moment where I thought, oh, I should take this a little more seriously, especially because, now it's things where when it's tax season, I have to, there's a little more complicated because there's all these different revenue streams. And it's been kind of a fun organic journey, but I'd like to build a solid foundation. So right now, instead of the traditional way of starting a business where you have an idea, you start your business and you generate revenue, I already have these streams coming in, and I just want to manage them more effectively. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. Once that's up and running, then I want to figure out how to build upon that. Like, are there products and services that I offer? Keeping in mind that I work a full-time job with ridiculous hours that makes it, tough to do all this stuff on the side. So it's sort of like this balancing act that I am experimenting with. I'll be the guinea pig, if you're thinking of doing it, I'll be the guinea pig. I'll let you know how it goes. But today, what I really wanted to go into was kind of one component of that I've been working on in the last week. And it's something that I've been spending so much time on in the last week, like hours and hours. I've worked a lot of 12-hour days this week, 11, 12-hour days, and then coming home and then working on this thing for a couple more hours. And it's been kind of exhausting, but I'm really proud of it. And that's putting together a media kit, which is not something I knew even existed, and definitely not something I thought that I needed. But it kind of first came into my consciousness a while ago, but it was like, why would I need something like that, much less spend a bunch of time on it? And to be honest, I still don't necessarily have the best answer to that, even to the point where when I was working out this week and Heather was looking at it, she's like, this looks cool. What's it for? And I was like, no idea really, but I'm going to spend a lot of effort on it just because. So I kind of want to go into that because what it really came down to was it was a methodical, objective, analytical look at the stuff that I am creating and producing and trying to assess what value it has in the world. And that was a really, really interesting exercise for me. If you clicked on this episode, you'll probably notice that it was called Preparation Meets Opportunity. And that's always something I've loved. It's a saying related to the idea of luck, that generally speaking, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And there's a story I wanted to share about that I think is really important. And it's a really good example of, maybe not important, but a great example. And it starts with the very first Discord server that I ever joined. So about 2 years ago, I was on Reddit, and there was a post that said, hey, we want to start a YouTube mastermind group. Anyone who's interested, send us your application. And that's kind of where it all began. But this wasn't like a sub for sub group. It was where you just sort of exchange, subscription for subscription, and everyone just sort of inflates their views. This was genuinely supposed to be a mastermind group, and the person behind it was really methodical about how they were accepting people. You had to do an application process. You had to be approved. In the end, there were about 15 people, 10 to 15, 12 to 15, that got accepted. And then we joined a Discord server. And if you've never been on Discord, it's basically the equivalent of like a chat room or even like a message board from way back when. And you can set up a Discord about whatever you want. Typically, it's used for gaming, but because people can be on Discord, either text or voice or even video, like while they're gaming and stuff. But you can set up a Discord for any topic, anything, invite who you want, set it up however you want. This was our YouTube mastermind group. So it all started, and then we had to do these weekly reviews. And the main administrator, the person in charge of it, set out the rules for these reviews, which were really strict. Once a week, someone would put up their channel. We would spend the week critiquing it. Everybody had to participate. You had to offer, the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses, first impressions, and people had to be ready to objectively take that criticism. And my week came, and I was super nervous. But by the end of it, I had redone my channel banner like 5 times. I had gotten feedback on some of my production and my thumbnails that was really helpful. And my channel was a lot better. But then I learned about the person that started this Discord server, who ended up being a 15-year-old kid from New Zealand, also named Tom. So let me tell you about Tom. Not me, but Tom from New Zealand. Tom was like the most perfect example of why curiosity is amazing, because he was just so curious about the world around him. And what that led him to do was just follow any passion, anything from writing to art to poetry to gardening and to YouTube. And so Tom was working to start a YouTube channel, and he wasn't content with just doing it the average way. He wanted to do it better than average. And so what he did was he put together this mastermind group to create like a support system for that. And it was incredible because everybody else was adults. We all had, jobs and families and more life experience, but he was the leader of this whole thing, this 15-year-old kid from the other side of the planet. And what he created was something genuinely special and genuinely amazing. And we were all pretty small channels at the time. We had, some of us were barely just starting. I think I had like 200 subscribers-ish at the time, maybe 150. And we were just trying to figure it out together. And slowly we were growing our channel. So over time, we were going to the point where, I remember hitting 300 and it was a big celebration. I remember people working towards 500. A couple of people very quickly jumped up to 1,000 and they were able to monetize their channels. And then it sort of started taking on this different angle where people were getting real serious about their channels. And they were trying to strategize and they were trying to figure things out. And a couple of people got really like a lot of traction on their channels, not me so much. And there was this conversation going on between these two guys. One had a channel that was like coming up on maybe 3,000 subscribers. He had like a gardening channel. And the other one was a guy who had a cooking channel that was coming up like on, I don't know, maybe 500 subscribers. And the gardening guy was putting together a media kit. But the cooking channel guy was really interested and aggressive about putting together a media kit. And I don't mean aggressive in a bad way. I mean, he was just really amped about the idea. And I was so curious because, our channels were so small. I remember him saying like, I'll never be able to monetize. I'll never be able to get the watch time. I'll never do whatever. And they're talking about putting together a media kit for brand deals, because basically what a media kit does is it boils down all of the main analytics of your channel. And so you can see, monthly engagement, what your audience is like. If it's beyond your channel, it could be other social media platforms, but basically your online presence on whatever platforms you value. And you can send that out to brands, or brands can look at that and they can kind of see, are you a good fit for them or not? And if so, what's your value? Some people include rate sheets for how much they charge. Some people don't, but you can at least get an idea of who you are, what you have to offer, and what value you might bring to them and what they might pay you in return for that. And I was not paying attention to these conversations as they were going. I was completely skipping over them when they pop up in the server because it just seemed so beyond me. And just, from where I was, it was just unnecessary at the time. Today, this would be, 2 years, I guess, into that server's life. It's basically, for all intents and purposes, it's dead. It's kind of like a ghost town. A few people check in from time to time, but for the most part, nobody's there. But very interesting things happen. So the guy with the cooking channel, despite the fact that he had very few subscribers and very low watch time, he was producing videos very regularly at a very high quality. Everything was good. The content, the thumbnails, his personality, the style, everything was really on point. And then, that work started to pay off. And so he quickly then did, once he hit, 1 or 2,000 subscribers, jumped up to 5,000, 8,000, 10,000. And when our server, our Discord server kind of disappeared, he was around 13,000. And it's, of course, said this ad nauseum. On YouTube, it's not about the numbers, but it is kind of about the numbers because they are a good indicator of just sort of, they can be a good indicator of where you're at and how things are going. And when he was at about 15,000, this was last spring, something happened. I don't know what it was because, we don't know each other pretty much at all, except on this Discord server. But something blew up. It was the algorithm, whatever, some kind of attention. And he started getting 10, 15,000 subscribers per day for a while. And now he's currently upwards of 140,000. YouTube is his full-time job. That was, 6 or 7 months ago. And it's just, everything has been blowing up. Every time he uploads a video, it gets anywhere between 50 to 100,000 views. Everything is monetized. And I think part of what happened was he had preparation. And then when the opportunity showed up, it took on the form of what looked like luck. Like, oh my gosh, his channel is blowing up. But really, whatever it was that initially drew people to his channel, when they found it, there wasn't just one okay video or two okay videos. There was a library that he had created, even when no one was watching, of really high quality stuff. And so people could just keep watching it. And there was more and more and more of it. And I think that just the way the world of YouTube works, it was like striking gold. And so everything just got promoted to more and more people. And then it just sort of blew up from there. And I remember checking his website where his media kit is, and you could see that he was like having trouble updating it. By their very nature, you have to update a media kit pretty frequently because numbers change like every month. And I could see that, as soon as it would be updated, it would be out of date. And in this case, if you're talking about tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of views, and you're trying to do this as a living, that's a lot of variation in price and money. But what really struck me was, oh my gosh, this media kit had to have been such a key thing that he put together as a foundational piece way before he ever needed it. And then when it was time to need it, it was already there. It was already ready. And I think that it's probably hard to put into words how valuable that ended up being. And so it got me thinking, not necessarily because I would expect a crazy spike or anything like that, but just the idea of it would be really nice to have something like that. It would be really nice to be, just prepared because you never know when something like that is going to happen. And so I decided in this past week that I was going to jump in and create my own media kit. But where do you start creating your own media kit? I had no idea. I have one platform that I really care about, which is YouTube. So I just immediately cut out lots of media kits. They're kind of like resumes. If you look at people's resumes, the same basic info is presented in an infinite number of ways. And, there's certain formats you don't really want to deviate from, but at the same time, you don't want it to look like everybody else's. And so I kind of went through and figured out, I ended up now over the past week that I've been working on this with a 9-page media kit that I'm actually super proud of. I'm sure I'll hate it in a month or two, but right now I'm really proud of it. So there's this beautiful cover page. There's a quick bio that kind of explains who I am, ties in together the world of working as a digital media teacher with the world of YouTube. And then we get into the nuts and bolts. There's really 3 pages of analytics. One is just total YouTube numbers, subscribers, total views, total watch minutes. There's monthly engagement. So by month, you can see which locations most of the views come, which age the audience is, what gender the audience is, and then there's most viewed videos. So you can see like my top 5 most viewed videos, what they are, how many views they have. Every month, you can see monthly engagement, views, and watch time, and view duration and subscribers and unique viewers, which was really interesting because right now I have about 8,400 subscribers. But obviously every video I post doesn't get 8,400 views or sometimes anywhere near that. However, in the past month, I had 47,000 unique viewers, or at least I guess that's unique devices. I don't know exactly what qualifies as a viewer, but that's a lot more people. When you think of 47,000 people, that's a much broader reach than you would expect when you're just like, well, I have this many subscribers. So even as a channel with a couple hundred subscribers or even under 100 subscribers, your actual reach could be significantly greater. So again, it kind of goes into where those numbers are not necessarily accurate or the complete picture. And then there's a thing, it was sort of interesting. I was like, oh, I'll do a page of brand collaboration I've done in the past. I did the official epidemic video, but there have been a few videos I've done in the past where people that I've just met and talked to that, you know, outside of trying to do something businessy on YouTube have, you know, sent products to be reviewed or whatever, just very objectively and whatnot. So I was like, oh, I actually have like 5 of these that I can include. There have been a few things to add to like a press page where just kind of going through my analytics, I realized people had taken some of my videos and posted them on different websites or featured them in a thing that I didn't even know about some of the time. But it was kind of cool to go like, oh, look, I've been featured on this thing and that thing and the other that are actually decent sources. For example, I noticed suddenly a bunch of my traffic was coming from studiobinder.com, where I was like, Studio Binder it's like a filmmaking resource where you can, they just have sort of articles and blogs and whatnot about everything related to filmmaking, but it's a really good resource. I've used it in my classes a lot because they break down filmmaking concepts and production concepts in really clear ways. I was like, why is Studio Binder sending people my way? And I kind of dug through their archive and I realized, oh, they did an article about what is tilt shift photography. And I had done a video which didn't really get that much attention, but it was about a tilt shift lens and how it works and what tilt shift photography is. And they posted that video as part of their article, and so it was sending people over. I was like, that's really cool. Like this resource I have used for years, like found something on their own of mine and decided to feature it. That was really, really cool. And it was interesting to put this in this media kit. And then of course there's a page of contact info and stuff like that. So in the end, where it stands right now, I think, and of course it has to be branded, you know, in a certain way. So it's all my colors and, you know, fonts and lettering and it just sort of gives an overall aesthetic, visual overlook of, you know, what my style is, who I am, my personality, that kind of thing. And that's really cool. It really is like a portfolio or a resume. And that's what I found is interesting. So I tried to keep it simple on myself. I can update as much of this as I want anytime I want, obviously, like, and no one's looking at it. Let's be real. But there's 3 pages, the total engagement, monthly engagement, and most viewed videos. Those are 3 separate pages. Those need to be updated every month. So by its very nature, this is something that's going to force me to come back and reflect every single month on where I'm at and where things are going. And that was kind of a key moment for me because even if no one looks at this thing, and even if, you know, like clearly I'm not going to be sleeping in money just because I made this media kit, but the exercise of really breaking down this thing that I've put, you know, thousands of hours into and dedicated a huge chunk of my life to over the past few years to kind of condense it into something that makes sense for other people was a hugely valuable exercise, much more so than I ever expected. So that's all to say, whatever you're doing online, if you're creating something online, whether it's video, podcast, blog, whatever, I think that there is, if you have an audience or creating something for an audience, I think that there is a value in putting together a media kit, even if it's almost only for yourself, because it really forces you to look at the totality of what you've created. And sometimes when you're just doing it piece by piece, or you're feeling demotivated or whatever, you just can't see the whole picture. And if you step back and you can see the entire picture, it makes a lot more sense. I had students doing project critiques today, and most of them were videos, but some of them aren't. And one of my students for the past year, like, truth be told, he's just not interested in or very good at video. But he's okay with that because what he's really good at is digital art. he kind of became a master of like Procreate on the iPad, which doesn't sound too impressive at first until you see the work that this kid makes, and it's unreal. He can do portraits, he can do designs, he can do logos. He's just like a wizard, and watching him draw on the iPad and use the app, the way it's literally like watching someone play an instrument. It's so finely tuned and just so professional, and he just picked it up absolutely naturally with no prior experience digitally. He had background in regular fine art. And so he's been working on this for about a year, and the thing he presented today was he put together this giant collage of basically all his work, and a lot of it is portraits. So it was almost like this giant crowd picture of, all these different people. Some of them are celebrities, some of them are original characters, some are people he knows in real life, but it's all original portraits he's drawn of these people, and, some logos and designs and things. But seeing all of that stuff put together projected on a giant screen kind of like gave an emotional response that was unexpected, because it's the same thing. You're working on these individual pieces, but when you see your work combined and just all in one place, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but in a really good way, because it makes you understand the value of what you're creating and of what you're producing. And the thing that is so funny to me about this specific example with my student is it's another instance of, a teenager kind of providing this inspiration. So there's the Discord server started by a 15-year-old in New Zealand, and there's this sort of collage moment from a 17-year-old at the high school where I teach. And that's what's really exciting about the digital media, new media world is it really doesn't matter, because I think we can be very conditioned to assume that because we're older or someone's older, they have a certain level of knowledge or a certain level of expertise, or they're out of touch in a certain way. But none of that is true in this landscape. Everybody can contribute if they're willing to put in the time to just sharpen their skills to develop something to contribute. But age is kind of irrelevant in a lot of ways when it comes to the talent or the perspective. Just today, Heather was doing live streams with one of her 76-year-old client/friends who is approaching YouTube and live streaming and Facebook and digital media with the same like gusto and enthusiasm that a 16-year-old would. And all of that is to say that there's just a whole world to explore here. And I've known that for a while, but it's not until I started taking a more serious analytical look at it that it's kind of like unlocked a different perspective that I really appreciate. It goes back to maybe like 3 or 4 months after I started my channel. I would say 3 or 4 months after I started regularly producing videos. I've told this story before, but I went to an office supply store and bought a little whiteboard just to hang on the back of the door to the room where I do all my recording and stuff, and just to keep ideas, just so I could write down my ideas and make notes to myself. And it's an $11 whiteboard. It's not a significant investment, but the fact that I went out and bought something specifically to guide me and help me in this outside of work endeavor, this thing that was all my own that I wanted to dedicate time and energy to, was really meaningful and in a shocking way to me. And doing something like a media kit is sort of the same thing. It's you being able to tell yourself that you're creating something of value. So put it all in one place and put it out there for the world to see. Doesn't mean necessarily it's going to go anywhere. It doesn't mean necessarily anything's going to happen. But I can absolutely guarantee you that the next time a brand or a company approaches me to do something, I am going to be better off because I am prepared to meet that opportunity with something that I've already got set up and ready to go. And that doesn't mean that I just want to be like a brand whore and take everything that everyone wants to throw my way. But it does allow me to be more selective. And when there is a company or a brand or whatever that I want to work with more specifically, it means that I'll be able to help control that conversation a little more than I would have in the past. And one of the pages specifically in my media kit kind of dives into that exact thing, where I sort of explain what I'm looking for in a brand sponsorship. And I specifically say brand collaborations work best when they're authentic, whether it's through a mention or a full integration. Brands whose products, services, and values align with the Enthusiasm Project and its audience are welcome to explore opportunities for collaboration. And then I sort of give examples. Like if you want to do a full integration, that would mean something like an open and honest product review where I don't have to say anything is amazing, but you want me to check out the thing that you have? Sure. You want to do hardware or software tutorial, an event experience showcase, whatever. All these things are open and objective. But in addition to doing that, there's a fee on the other end where you're supporting the work and the time and the energy and the effort. And I used to, I don't think anyone likes ads, obviously, but I used to hate it when I would hear, YouTubers and whatever say like, before we begin, this video is sponsored by whoever, Squarespace, whatever. And it wasn't until it was actually Cody Warner said that like, you should not be annoyed by hearing these things, because what it is these companies are stepping up and offering significant support to people that you appreciate. And, it might sound cliche at this point, but even if it's for fun, taking the time, energy, and effort to produce something like a YouTube channel really is a lot of work. And if somebody wants to come in and demonstrate that there's value to that, especially in a consistent and significant way, that's actually something to be appreciated, especially if they do a reliable product. Like, if anyone's listening, I would love a Squarespace partnership, because I've used Squarespace for like 10 years. I've built, I don't even know how many websites using it. So I'd be more than happy to be like, yeah, this thing is super cool. If they want to support me, that's a win-win, and I can recommend their thing because I also believe in it. So there's these fine lines. I always think of the Lego movie, where some people are like, that's just blatant product placement. Maybe, but it's also like a really excellent movie. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. Like, yeah, you're going to go out to the store and you're going to see Lego movie Lego sets, but the movie itself is super fun, super original, super creative. And who cares if they're able to make money off of it? You have the other end of that. There are other movies that aren't necessarily so pure, and they're just sort of to sell new toys or to sell new products or whatever. But there is a way to do it right where that's not the case. And I think that that is really crucial. I also mentioned in the sponsorship page of the kit, you can do a full integration or just a mention, which would basically be like, this video is sponsored by whoever, check the link, whatever, and then move on to whatever I want to make the video about. So it's a video that I'd make anyway, and then I just sort of go, hey, thanks so-and-so for like helping me make this video. And then a full integration is like, here's a video about the thing or the product or the service, which again, I still have total control over saying yes or no. That's the beauty of it, because you're in charge of your channel, of your path, of whatever. And it's not like you don't have a boss saying you need to use this product or this company. And you're like, I hate that product and company. And they're like, it doesn't matter, you have to use it. It's just up to you. You get to decide who you say yes to and who you say no to. And I think that is wildly empowering and also incredibly just important to realize. So if you do want to check out my media kit, you can go to enthusiasmproject.com/media, or if you just go to enthusiasmproject.com, there's a link right at the top. It could be a good example. Feel free to, move it around or borrow it, or, incorporate ideas that I've brought into your own thing. But it's an interesting example. And of course you can Google infinite other examples and see all the different ways that people have incorporated these things. And again, even if it's not a YouTube channel, if you're creating something online for an audience and you're putting your time and your energy into it, it's worth collecting the data to put together. And in terms of starting a business, this all comes back to the idea of what is the value of the thing that I have that is generating some revenue, this thing that just sort of popped up, put some effort into it, revenue started coming out of it. What is it? Like I need to assess, what is this thing? What is its value? How do I want to approach it? And kind of take it from there and see what happens. And it should be ultra fun, ultra exciting. And, I love graphic design. So this was actually just a really fun passion project. So if you got any questions or anything about that, send them my way. I'd also love a little bit of feedback if you have any of that to offer. But moving on from the media kit, it's time for the only segment on this show, the second edition of the only segment. Last week I kind of mentioned, I think it's cool to just have a little bit of structure, So even if conversations and topics go off in these different directions, we can kind of wrap up the show in a specific way. I love gear, so we're going to talk about gear of the week. So this is basically my chance, unsponsored, of course, to just say something that I really enjoy using this week. I do want to say normally, I kind of want to be objective and just, objective's not the right, well, I do want to be objective, but I want to be aware of, hey, money is a thing that I don't have a ton of or an infinite amount of, and you might not either. So let's keep these products and these ideas, affordable. This week is not that product. And the reason is because I finally upgraded my 6-year-old MacBook Pro. And I love my old MacBook Pro. It's a 2013. It's a 13-inch. It's like basically the base model. It is what I've used for everything. Every podcast, every video, every work project. I've built 2 media pathways on this thing. And it still works like a champ. It's just starting to slow down a little bit. And since I do a lot of video editing and a lot of video work, the smaller screen is feeling a little restrictive. So now that Apple has released a 16-inch MacBook Pro with an improved keyboard, I kind of jumped on it to see how great it was. And even though it was a pretty significant investment, whoa, it's such a good computer. I've really been enjoying it. It made putting this media kit together so much easier on a giant screen. Photoshop just runs like butter. I've edited a couple videos on it so far, and it's just, everything is instantaneous. So it just reduces friction in a really enjoyable way. I'm going to do a whole review on it. I'm going to do a whole video about it. I'm really excited to make it. We're just heading in, or at least I'm just heading into Thanksgiving break. So I have a few days off, and I want to spend several days really putting together a good, in-depth, real-world review. YouTube's been flooded with reviews on this thing, but I kind of want to take my perspective as someone who doesn't get a new computer every year or even every half decade. And, real world usage, the fact I've been using a 6-year-old computer to do all the things that I do probably means that the average person doesn't need to upgrade every year. And yeah, this thing, it's a physical object. Things don't bring happiness, but they do make things a lot easier, and making your life easier can kind of help you be happier in some ways. So that's my gear of the week, is the brand new 16-inch MacBook Pro. So I hope this was kind of an interesting look into where I'm at with this whole thing. I hope I was able to expand upon the concept that we put out last week about starting a business and what that means, and the fact that I'm super naive and I don't know what in the heck I'm talking about. But that's the point, is to document that and go from a point of not knowing anything to knowing a little bit about something. But of course, as with anything, the more that you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And so it is very much a quest of ignorance. But I think that's kind of fun. I think that is kind of exciting. So again, as always, if you want to reach out to me, I'm at Soder and Tom on Twitter and Instagram. You can always shoot me an email at tom@enthusiasmproject.com. Next week, I do believe Heather's going to be back, and we're going to talk about some of the exciting business things in her life. She's my perfect real-life live-in role model of what to do and how to strategize and how to prove to the world that you have value. And speaking of value, your time has value. So I really do appreciate you spending that time listening to me ramble on and tell you a story about a Discord server and a media kit. So thanks so much for listening. I will see you guys next week.